Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Ukraine is reshaping its political leadership at a critical moment in the war as peace talks loom and pressure mounts from allies and adversaries alike. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has moved to shore up his inner circle, balancing loyalty, competence and Western confidence after months of diplomatic strain with Washington. A major cabinet reshuffle, questions around Andrii Yermak's influence and quiet course corrections during talks with President Donald Trump all point to a leadership bracing for fallout. To unpack what's really changed and what it signals, we're joined by Mariya Zolkina, Associate Research Fellow at LSE IDEAS. Mariya, welcome back to TVP World. Thanks for taking the time. Great to have you.
Hello, and thanks for the invitation.
It's a pleasure as always. So, give us a bird's eye view of what's going on with this reshuffle.
I think that's kind of reshuffle. This is a kind of combination, let's say, of both foreign policy motivations and arguments which President Zelenskyy had, and domestic developments. Okay. Because basically, the idea to fire President's previous head of the office, Andrii Yermak, was also a result of foreign policy factors and domestic ones. But domestic basically prevailed at some point. Right now, I think with nomination of Budanov, President Zelenskyy wants to strengthen his president's relations with negotiation team on the side of the U.S.
So let me pause you there.
Yeah.
So he's put Budanov in charge of the presidential office. And you say that's going to strengthen his relationship with Donald Trump. On what basis does he think that?
He thinks that, first of all, the president is the main person in Ukraine, according to the constitution and political system and practice, who is responsible for strategic course when it comes to foreign policy. And during the wartime, it basically became not a secret that president was, with his previous head of the office, coordinating more than Ministry for Foreign Affairs, the negotiation track. And right now, when we have problems on the negotiation track, like not that kind of mild and soft relations with Americans, especially, it's a kind of hope that Budanov, who has high reputation, who has good authoritative, who is really authoritative among political and military elites in U.S. especially, but not only, with Western European partners of Ukraine as well. So President thinks that the figure of Budanov will change the atmosphere and mood. Budanov has a different reputation, like a guy with a clean history, political history, military history. He's kind of a hero, and he's very good analyst, which is not denied even by his political enemies inside Ukraine, that he has a comprehensive approach to whatever he is planning. So he has both political and military view on what is going to be done, and he implements the plans perfectly well, at least when he was the head of main intelligence directorate at...
Okay, now that leads us straight into the changes that are happening in the intelligence directorate as well. And clearly this is a military decision, it would seem. What do you think President Zelensky's goals are in that direction?
First of all, I don't think that's just purely a military decision, because President Zelenskyy, in my opinion, also has some political goals, because we don't have the official publication of sociological and public opinion polls in Ukraine, so there is a kind of a compromise between main sociological companies, but President is following his ratings throughout the war, actually on a weekly basis. And he's taking care of whether he has chances for being re-elected once and when or how the next elections will take place. And Budanov and another military guy, General Zaluzhny, who is now ambassador of Ukraine to the United Kingdom, those guys are just two figures who appear to be quite competitors if there is at a certain point the new elections in the nearest future. And I think part of the logic of President Zelenskyy is either to make Budanov not a competitor, but a part of the team closer than Budanov was before, because Budanov was perceived like a separate, figure in the political system, though he worked for the Ministry of Defense, or another less probably realistic it doesn't seem that realistic right now, but from political point of view, that's still possible. If President Zelenskyy doesn't have the real chances to be re-elected, there might be a strategy of soft transition of power at some point. If there is no clashes between him and Budanov, Budanov may get a political weight in addition to his military weight and military reputation, and at some point he can be nominated and supported by Zelenskyy, who will probably at some point reject from being a candidate for the next election. So
you think there's a likelihood that there's going to be an election during the war?
I think there is no conditions for the elections to be conducted during the war, neither technically nor politically. But I do see the strategic pressure coming from outside that if there is some kind of de-escalation or at least a partial ceasefire, that Ukraine will be really pushed and pressed by a number of Ukrainian partners, especially US, to at least start some kind of political reshuffle more than just replacing people between different posts.
Okay, so how will President Trump be viewing this with this reshuffle? Is this going to improve a relationship on the military front? So is President Trump going to be more likely, for example, to open up the tap when it comes to military equipment for Ukraine?
I don't think something will significantly change. I think the new scheme, when US is not given anything for granted, but just selling on a commercial basis, even those critical air defense systems or air defense missiles to Ukraine, nothing is going to change here. I think Trump is totally satisfied with the new scheme, and Europeans have accumulated actually the resources to buy those stuff for Ukraine. However, the sharing intelligence with Ukraine was one of the bargaining chips on the side of Trump administration, and they stopped sharing the intelligence for a short period of time in 2025, exactly because they wanted to pressure Ukraine and make Ukraine more, as they thought, constructive and willing to compromise asymmetrically when Russia was not compromising on anything in negotiations. I think Budanov is a really good figure here to secure the intelligence sharing will be smooth and uninterruptible, because he is speaking the same language, politically, military one, with his counterparts in US, and he's perceived really well. So the possibility, the intelligence sharing will be another time a bargaining chip and a kind of blackmailing instrument on the side of Americans. Is now this probability is going really down.
Okay, so he brings quite a lot to the table. Now, how do you think this is going to be viewed in Moscow?
I think for the same reasons it is going to slightly, at least we have a hope, it will improve the Ukraine's relations with Americans within the framework of negotiations. For the same reason, Russia is not going to be happy with this nomination, because when the chair was empty, or when the chair was occupied by Andrii Yermak, who actually made a lot of political mistakes by concentrating a lot of power in his hands unreasonably and unconstitutionally even, right now there is another logic. This person will have a strict military and security tasks, as President has already said, and this is quite a change in the position of who the head of the presidential office is, because normally, and according to the Ukrainian legislation, this person who is going to organize the schedule of the president and support him analytically. Right now we do have a clear focus that this guy will be concentrating purely on military and security operations amid the war. For these reasons, he, who has organized a number of great intelligence operations inside Russia and against Russia, anywhere in the world actually, he is not a quite good choice when we see it from the Russia's perspective, let's say.
Right. Well, the other thing, of course, is you mentioned that it brings the opportunity for some kind of election in the not-too-distant future. Now, as we know, President Putin, who's a strong proponent of democracy, has said that one of the reasons that he doesn't want to talk to Zelenskyy is because he's not properly elected. So do you think that this kind of takes away that excuse from Putin?
I wouldn't say Russia will stop talking about elections. That's kind of excuse for them not to have actually the comprehensive peace deal signed and not to agree even to a ceasefire. However, the main risk here is whether the Americans will continue playing the role of so-called moderator between Russia and Ukraine, whether they will continue to speak about elections when we still don't have any conditions on the ground for that. I hope that in the nearest future they will not, and they will concentrate just on the technical stuff when it comes to American negotiation team and Ukrainian negotiation team. And I do hope that we will see Budanov as the real concentration and coordination center for negotiations. Right now, the negotiation track on the side of Ukraine is actually chiefed, led by Umerov, the former Minister of Defense. But right now, I do hope that Budanov will be more and more present in that part of relations with US, and US will slightly, slow down with this pressure when it comes to elections, because legally, both Parliament and President of Ukraine are in power. According to Ukrainian constitution, there is no violation here at all.
Okay, now you mentioned the peace process. Do you think this is going to move the needle, this reshuffle?
I think this reshuffle will not significantly bring us closer to any kind of a peace deal, but it will improve probably our relations with our partners, because let's remember that dissatisfaction with how political system of Ukraine was functioning, in particular this kind of let's say team made up by President Zelenskyy and the former head of his office, Andrii Yermak, this kind of team was not understandable and was considered to be quite ineffective by many Western partners of Ukraine. And there was a request, like, do something about this. I do hope that this will improve our relations with a number of the Western partners, but still, to make any kind of a ceasefire or comprehensive peace deal, we still need Russia, who agree to the conditions. And right now, when as Trump and Zelenskyy is saying we have 90% of the proposals agreed between Europe, Ukraine and US, we still lack Russia to agree to anything out of those 100%.
Well, Russia's stayed with its maximalist goals and hasn't moved at all yet. Now, in the last minute or so that we have left, Mariya, does this change the dynamic in the relationship between Ukraine and the EU or European countries in general?
It will, because Budanov has a good reputation not only with when it comes to Americans, but also with Europeans, and it was well expected. And we do, but however, we should expect some other announcement to be implemented, because Zelenskyy has announced he is gonna change the Minister of Defense, which will not be considered both inside the country and outside of the country, especially by Europeans, as something as effective as the new person in the office of the President, Budanov. Because the current Minister of Defense has just started normalizing internal processes in the ministry. And even though he will stay in the government, probably as the newly appointed Minister for Energy System of Ukraine, just leaving Ministry of Defense with a new person again in just less than one year, so it seems to be ineffective. And I think if there are claims or kind of concerns on the side of Europeans, they will be not about Budanov nomination, but about some other reshuffles, which are on the way and might be seen in the nearest days.
So it's a question of rebuilding those relationships and between the Europeans and...
Relations will not be rebuilt. I think they are quite stable right now. The question is now...
No, but between the individuals, the defense minister and so
on? No, I think the main added value of Ministry of Defense to be led just by one person is not to lose another several months for a new minister to find out how everything is working and what he or she, according to right now available information, it will be Mikhailo Fedorov. Right now he's Vice Minister of Ukraine and Minister for Digital Transformation. So he will still need several months to understand what he is going to do with the ministry. We don't have those months right now.
No, I understand. Mariya, thank you very much, as always, for coming along and sharing the analysis with our audience.
Thank you.
Have a lovely day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. That brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks. Don't go away, though. Lots more coming up. Goodbye.